James O'Keefe really drove this point home last week with his expose on the inner workings of Disney's hiring policies, but this is something that we've known in Hollywood for a long time, and it's even worked its way into gaming, well, for the better part of a decade and change, and one of the most aced people that used to be in the gaming industry. Not exactly too sure what Marty O'Donnell's up to, but that name, for a certain group of gamers, is right up there with the likes of Nobu Uematsu and Koji Kondo. Okay, he's the guy behind the excellent score that was the underpinning of the original Halo trilogy. I can't remember if he worked on Reach or not, but he's the guy, everybody, okay, whether you're an FPS fan or not, but you all know the choir. Oh, and then the guitar kicks in, Steve Vai kicks in. Okay, I bet you didn't know that one, but a little fun fact for you. Lays down the riff. When it comes to, I don't even know, man, can you classify the original Halo trilogy as being modern at this point anymore? But it's one of the, we'll just say, just for argument's sake. Okay, you can quibble about it on your own time. But it's one of the most, iconic modern gaming OSTs out there, and he's the guy who brought it. Marty is also somebody who has run for Congress recently, or is currently running for Congress on a Republican ticket. So yeah, it's like Marty, he's definitely an outsider, especially with current day Bungie, and especially with the gaming industry in general, but he is somebody who has a significant amount of sway, so what he says will go far, and what he's saying is kind of obvious, but very true. Halo series composer Marty O'Donnell says video game industry now pandering because they fear being on the wrong side of some special interest groups who can be very loud and very annoying. I mean, we also seen that, okay, the James O'Keefe expose on Disney, yes, check. And then also shout out CEO of Sweet Baby Inc., Kim Belair. If you don't get the diversity points and diversity decisions that you want, you sit down, may you have a coffee with your marketing department, and you not just ask them, you don't politely suggest, you terrify them into making the decisions that you want. So yeah, Marty's right in providing anecdotal confirmation of one of the most widely assumed reasons for the currently abysmal state of Western entertainment. Original Halo series composer Marty O'Donnell has revealed that any and all such industries are currently living in fear of being on the wrong side of various special interest groups and their outrage mobs. I mean, it's so obvious, man. There's some third rails in all of entertainment. Hell, in a lot of news coverage as well. It's like, okay, cool. If there's a certain group that wants a certain thing, you have to pander to them. Otherwise, you end up getting the outrage in the news cycle. Okay, if there's an atrocity that's going on and you want to report on it, some people will go ahead and tell you who's conducting said atrocity, or if it's another group, they ain't gonna tell you who's committing it, and they'll only cover one side of the confrontation. If you know, you know. Hand-wringing intensifies. Oh, O'Donnell, whose talents helped to provide the soundtracks of each one of the mainline Bungie developed Halo titles. Oh, okay, that's what I thought. I just couldn't remember. Spoke of the phenomenon during a Juneteenth appearance on noted conservative commentator Andrew Chapados' eponymous Andrew Says podcast. Is that a big thing? The face looks familiar, if I'm being completely honest. I've probably seen him before. It rings a bell. Halo theme creator Marty O'Donnell is running for Congress. Yes, of course. Okay, that's the episode that is being quoted following a general discussion about his current political campaign to represent Nevada in the U.S. House of Representatives. Oh my God. Like if his campaign ad doesn't have a banger soundtrack, it's like, Marty, what are you doing? O'Donnell was eventually pressed by Chapados for the thoughts on the topic of DEI in video games, with the host inquiring, when you're involved in games, was representation on anybody's mind? Was the amount of diversity, the amount of transgender characters, the games ever a topic that anybody thought they should worry about? Oh, back when games were great, the mid to late 2000s, where every company was firing on all cylinders. God, man, if you weren't around at that time during the midway cycle of the PS3, Xbox 360 era, you missed out on something tremendous. God, there was so much money getting thrown around, but all of that money was going into making legendary games that still stand the test of time. Before marketing budgets, ended up getting way too out of hand, before you started having way too long development times on projects. Like, you just take a look, okay? From the 6th to the 7th generation, PS2, PS3, Xbox 360, you had five during that time. Prior to the release of the Xbox One and the PS4, you had five GTA games. Mainline GTA, right? You had 3, Vice City, San Andreas, 4, and 5. That's crazy to think about. And since the release of 5, we've had, we're still waiting on 6. Halo, you had the entirety of the still lauded and appreciated trilogy. Since the release of the Xbox One, you had the abysmal 5, and Infinite. Is there anybody still playing that? The most popular thing associated with Halo at this point in time is the Master Chief Collection, which just goes back and repackages, and with, some exception with the Anniversary Collections. It allows people to play the greatness that Marty had a hand in developing. But yeah, that's what people back in the time, back working in the games industry, that's what they were focused on, making great art. Now, as Marty is saying, you affirmed, no, it wasn't. Yeah, nobody was thinking about all of these modern day-isms, hence why you could run down a list. And this isn't just me being old man says that old things are better. It's just, what's the list of the top PS4 games, Xbox One games? It's like, they're all ports, they're all repackages. It was a remastering and a remake machine. Compare that at any point in time with any of the previous generations. What changed? And go woke, go broke. We keep seeing that happen over and over again, said O'Donnell. DEI is not diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a code word for essentially a Marxist worldview of power structures. So there's so many catchwords that are being injected into the conversation. Colonization, decolonization, all of these kind of things. It is so far from what, especially in an entertainment business, what people should be worried about. Are you going to tell a good story? Are you going to make a good game? Are you going to do something that's compelling emotionally for people? That's fun for people. That's what creators should be concerned about. Exactly. And that's what's still being concerned about over on Eastern shores. When it comes to the West, it's like, okay, are you going to be focusing on telling a diverse story? Are you going to be focusing on making an inclusive game? Are you going to do something that's compelling to my emotional sensibilities? Is it going to be not just fun, but is it going to be telling a message? That's what current day creators are concerned about. Pushing back against the popular narrative that prior to the 2010s, entertainment was composed solely of straight white people. Sergeant Johnson, there you go. Cortana, there you go. No data problem. And hell, outside of Master Chief, the 2 most popular characters, and a little person called Miranda Keys. For Christ's sakes, people love Halo characters. You know why? Because they're good characters. People remember those characters that debuted back in 2001. Is that when Combat Evolved came out? Come on, man. It's a stupid point to make that could only come out of the mouth of a raving lunatic leftist. We've had our share of, I guess I would have to say, diverse characters, but it wasn't because we needed to make sure that they were a certain percentage of, fill in the blank. It was because these were like either great actors or this was going to be a great character. Yeah, exactly. Arbiter? Yeah, I guess Arbiter, his voice actor was a diversity hire. Oh, no, right. You got Keith David to voice him. One of the most prolific voice actors of his generation. But whatever. It was never any part of our discussions were about, let's make sure we fill in the blanks, that our characters reflect perfectly the makeup of society, which has never led to a good piece of entertainment, full stop. It's just such a creatively dampening way of approaching things, which is why I think the fans are rejecting this ideology. The fans don't necessarily reject movies or games because diversity or equity or inclusion kinds of things are forced into face. Certainly, they don't like being preached to. But basically, these are not good products. At the end of the day, it's not fun to play. It's not interesting. These characters don't sound real. That's what ends up happening. People just don't like it. They're not good stories. They're not memorable. And yeah, man, again, just being the old man yelling at clouds. When was the last time that you played a game? Like, I can just go ahead and, point to the example. Here's the exception. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm going to remember that game forever because I'm going to continue to talk about it forever. How many games are on that level, on your all-time list that have come out in the past 10 years? Honestly, anything that could hold a candle to something from the, NES, Super Nintendo, PlayStation 2, even into the PlayStation 3. There's nothing even close, man. Same with Hollywood. The Lord of the Rings trilogy was pretty much Hollywood going, Vita say. there's been few and far between legendary films to come out in the aftermath, especially when you compare and contrast what was coming out in that 5-year period from one way or another around 2000. Like, look at all the films that turned 25 this year. It's crazy. The original Matrix, like it or not, The Phantom Menace came out. And then, yes, a year later, you had the Lord of the Rings trilogy kick off with Fellowship. Gladiator. Just over the past, just take a look at the past 5 years. How many genuinely great films have come out? Ones that are going to stand the test of time. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like The Matrix, like The Lord of the Rings. There are some. Okay, I'm not saying that everything's been trash, but those are the exception and not the rules. And what has changed during that time? Well, it's pretty obvious to tell. It is so obvious that even Marty O'Donnell, the great, legendary composer of the best and only Halo games, and just simply go ahead and point out, they're focused on pushing a narrative. They're not focused on telling good stories. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.